Hello and welcome to Tactically Sound, an RPG-focused podcast. And this series is currently serving as a Fallout deep dive on all things related to the TV show. So we're breaking down season 1 episode by episode, and we highly encourage that you only watch this podcast if you're prepped for spoilers regarding the show.
Yes.
So we'll try and keep this as limited to other spoilers unrelated to this TV show, so you could just focus on the show. But yeah, we'll occasionally touch on lore if it has some connection to the show. And then my name is Spencer, and this is my channel, Yetti Den, and I'd like to welcome my co-host, JumbyJumbwa, otherwise known as the Dwarven King of the Wasteland. So, Matt, otherwise known as Jumby, what did you think of episode 5? It's called The Past.
Well, coming off the back of episode 4, where we were saying this is kind of like the first episode that we actually really fell in love with, and it was awesome. I think this episode takes a little bit of that step back towards a little bit more exposition, setting up some new big moments. But it's well needed, and it feels all right, because last week we talked about that big Supermart raid, which was had a lot of action. So we're getting a little bit more story this time, and there's some really interesting story beats and clues we get in this episode that I'm really excited to talk about.
Yeah, it almost feels like when you said exposition, my brain immediately went to side quests. It's like when you're starting up a side quest, you're on the golden path, you're trying to complete it, and then you realize that you're stumbling into either bespoke, unique to you side quests. It's like, oh no, I'm out of ammo, or I'm out of health, or I have too much radiation. It seems like it's both doing that and creating a scenario where it's like a designer-developer-led side quest where you stumble upon a cool vault by accident. It kind of feels like this is the side quest episode that enriches the main theme in a way. It also feels like there's a lot of true exposition for the characters at the vaults, Vault 33 and discovering Vault 32. So one thing I noticed that I was picking up on is that this episode has a theme, and that theme is friendship, trust, and betrayal.
Yes.
And so there's so many moments where you notice a character having to, trust somebody, or experiencing betrayal, or forging a friendship. And I thought that was a really interesting through line that I noticed on the second watch.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why it's so fun to be able to go back and watch an episode. And then there was another insight that, again, through watching multiple times, it's really starting to come to light, which is what is the deal with Maximus? And this episode, to me, I think revealed a lot more.
Yes.
But there was a side tangent where Cain recently did a podcast appearance on Play, Watch, Listen with Alana Pierce and Austin Winnery. And his theory is that Maximus is a dumb character playthrough, which is what Tim refers to as a common template that he designs his games for. So the most recent RPG that Tim designed as a director would be The Outer Worlds, and one of the core character sheets that he tested it through is his dumb character. Now, I didn't look directly at the character sheet, but he was referencing the character sheet that Bethesda gave out. But my thought was, the more I watch this and the more I watch the actor, Maximus, I have a feeling that maybe in the script they wanted to portray Maximus as dumb, but the actor himself brought so much layer to the character that doesn't really work. So it's like we're always trying to wonder, what is Maximus really thinking? What is Maximus really feeling? And I think that's one of those things that I expect to change in season 2 now that they've seen the whole season, they've seen the performance. I don't know if a dumb character playthrough works with that actor because he's such a layered guy. Like, he makes you think he could be a secret villain, or he could be, you know, this really cool anti-hero. Like, he has so many layers that his eyes are telling us on screen that it almost seems like that's one criticism that I think is fair, is that maybe this is a character where they thought, oh, he'll kind of be dumb, he'll kind of be funny. It'll be funny to see how little this character knows about the world. But then at the same time, he's so crucial to the plot that I think we should see a more layered character to match the really layered and dynamic performance that we get from the actor playing Maximus. Like, those two things need to synergize. And I think he has a lot of great moments as an actor portraying this character in this episode. And again, that ties back to friendship, trust, and betrayal. And then another theme that we'll kind of experience as we watch this is Wastelanders and Vault Dwellers experiencing betrayal differently. So they're different in how quickly betrayal is revealed. So when you're a Vault Dweller, you realize you've been betrayed over the course of 200 years, you know, through all of the propaganda, all of the deception. When you finally make it to the surface, you realize, oh man, I've been lied to for the last, 30 years of my life, or however old Lucy is. But not only that, her peers have been betrayed, or they've been doing the ones betraying. And then if you're a Wastelander, it only takes you a split second to get betrayed by someone, whether they're stealing food for you, drinking all your water, you know, lying to you about the medicine they're selling you. And so I think that's one thing that Lucy maybe appreciates about the surface, is like, yeah, it's annoying, but at least they know stuff. And there's a scene later that we'll break down where she just straight up asks Maximus, like, what's been going on? Because I feel like I've been naive this whole time. So what are your thoughts on these overarching themes for the episode? Friendship, trust, and betrayal.
Well, I really liked how you started off saying, like, I feel like this episode is like the side quests. And then you went on talking about how we are learning more about Maximus's character. And it reminded me how, like, some of the best quests are side quests because they actually do reveal more about maybe your companions. And that is done so well in this show. And I noticed that as you were talking. So thank you for noticing that and saying that. That was really cool. That was a good insight. Yeah, and I really just enjoyed seeing, like, the chemistry of friendship that they had. But then also, like, I really remember how in the first episode I was telling you, like, I was so scared that Lucy was going to be really naive and it was going to bite her in the butt and come off really cheesy. Well, I love how her naiveness still affects her, even though she's, like, kind of more adjusted and brave. And there's, like, moments where you see how, like, she, like, leverages her naive, like, not really knowing about the wasteland to be like, I'm just going to charge right in now. Like, I don't care. This wasteland is crazy. I got my gun now. I'm a badass. Right. And then he who's familiar with the wasteland is a lot more cautious, like Maximus has always been. So it's really cool to see, like, their friendships develop coming from those different perspectives of how they react to the wasteland. So yeah, this episode is really interesting with all those little bits. I don't want to get too far into it yet because we'll get to those scenes and we can talk about it a little bit more. But yeah, I back up everything and agree with everything you said. You had some really good insights, Spencer.
Thanks. Yeah. So let's dive into that first scene. So Maximus is essentially falling for his own mistaken identity. So he's enjoying this power that he gains as being Knight Titus, right? He's in the power armor suit, and his squire is now starting to like bond with him. And I feel like for a character like Maximus, there's a child at heart. You know, they always show the scene, the flashback of him as a child coming out of, you know, what is that? Is it like a phone booth kind of thing? He like comes out of the phone booth.
No,
after
a
the
fridge,
bombing.
like Indiana Jones.
Oh, it's a fridge. Oh, like Indiana Jones, duh, because Todd Howard loves Indiana Jones. Okay, so cool. So that's the Easter egg there. So he comes out of a fridge, and the first thing he sees is the Brotherhood of Steel. And so it feels like all season we're trying to figure out if that love of the Brotherhood of Steel has ever been corrupted. You know, like, is he seriously still respecting the Brotherhood? Does he really intend to save the world as a knight? And it feels like this bonding with the squire in an unhealthy way has kind of led a false sense of identity security for Titus, where he's like, you know, he's Maximus is Knight Titus right now, and the Maximus realizes the time to reveal his real identity is in this first scene. It's triggered by their sense of accomplishment with the target, which is Wilzig's head. They have it, right? They like, what are the odds that you know, Maximus would ascend to a knight, become Knight Titus, and then his bully would become his squire, and then together they would get lucky enough to have the ghoul drop the ball, or drop the head in this case, and they inherit the head, and now they're all they need to do is go back.
Well,
and so the con is so successful
that they were protecting each other against the abomination. So they have this moment of like built trust too. So he's feeling like, this guy saved my life, I saved his life. Like, I think if I reveal myself, he's gonna remember that and treat me nice, you know? So
the bromance is going to continue is essentially what he's thinking. Like, like the bromance has just begun. so like, it's so successful that Thaddeus asks Titus to brand him. This is like the squirehood becoming like the next level, you know, as
such bromance.
I believe that we see Maximus getting branded towards the beginning, maybe even the first episode. So now it's Thaddeus's turn. And so as they're celebrating their success together, Thaddeus says, quote, when they see us return with the target. And I think the clue right there is see, because that means like visually the Brotherhood of Steel are going to see Maximus coming out of that power armor. And so this causes like a moment of reflection for Maximus and a desire to control the outcome. And he says, quote, hey, look, before we go back to the base, there's probably something I should tell you. And then in this moment of vulnerability, Maximus reveals his face to Thaddeus. There's a complete change in Thaddeus the squire. Thaddeus clearly fears the repercussions of being seen with the traitor Maximus. So a naive Maximus offers continued friendship, but his reputation will never recover in the eyes of Thaddeus. Like, Maximus literally says, quote, we can stay friends. And then Thaddeus has zero interest in joining with Maximus. He says, what did you do with Knight Titus? Like the total tone shift. And then Maximus says, he's dead. So, you know, you and I, we just have to get our story straight before we go back. Again, like really naive in thinking that, okay, all we ought to do is like get our story straight. And then Maximus says, it's the Brotherhood, they'll find out. And that's when Maximus really flips the switch. So the surface dwellers experience immediate conflict over Maximus's betrayal of Thaddeus through his falsified identity. And then Maximus makes a split decision to kill Thaddeus by closing his helmet. So the moment he closes the helmet is, to me, in my eyes, the moment that he decides, okay, I need to just get rid of him because this is way too much danger. And
it was his Kylo Ren moment.
Right. Totally. That's a great analogy. Like Tim Kaine describes it as, you know, there's 3 archetypes in a Fallout game. You have your do-gooder, who would be Lucy. You have Maximus, who is a character that a lot of players play as, which is someone who wants to do good, but if something doesn't go their way, they're going to beeline it for their goal, like goal-centered. And then Tim Kaine was saying that the ghoul is someone who's just essentially like an evil playthrough. It's like they're just gonna there's no considering what's good anymore. And so Maximus, you know, was first trying to get his goal of like being a proper knight by turning the squire on his side, seeing his real identity, and then going in as a unified, you know, duo as they explain what happened to the real knight Titus. When that fails, though, Maximus immediately flips to, okay, well, then I got to just get rid of you because I still want my goal. I want to see my goal through. So he squashes Thaddeus's foot. Thaddeus uses a tool to remove Maximus's fusion core, resulting in the powering down of the armor, which essentially creates like an Iron Maiden. Like he's trapped in this cage now. And then he says, "Don't leave me in here," which sounds super claustrophobic. And he's clearly panicked. And he's left with only verbal insults, which I thought mirrored the original Knight Titus when the other Knight Titus was trapped in the power armor. So, yeah, it's the T60 power armor, and the way I was describing it is it's kind of like the ring in Lord of the Rings. It's like this doomed object that everybody wants, and then once they get it, like they can't separate themselves from it, and it takes over them. So what did you think of the way that Maximus, you know, the character is portrayed in this opening scene?
I thought, again, like this is the episode where I started kind of liking Maximus more and more. I really feel like a lot of his character arc is shining through, and I feel like by now we're starting to get a little bit more of what he's thinking. And this scene was very easy to like follow his track of mind of being scared, wanting to befriend his new squire, and then feeling that betrayal, and then, oh crap, I gotta kill him. I would have the same exact flow of emotions playing the game if I was trying to pass skill checks and things like that, right? So I thought that was really cool and super gamey RPG, and off the bat, I'm already starting to like him a little bit more. And it's just kind of funny a little bit, even though it's really dark still. So I thought it was a good start to the show. And it's also a nice little break from, like, I think most of the episodes have started with Cooper Howard or the Ghoul. So it's kind of a nice break from that to keep that storyline fresh and kind of focus a little bit somewhere else and develop more of these storylines, because as we were saying in the first episodes, I really feel like Maximus needed some more time to shine, and now he's starting to get it, and yeah, I liked it.
I like what you said about a failed skill check, because it's totally a failed charisma check. It's like you're presented with this conflict of, hey dude, I'm so excited for them to see us bring back the target. And then you're presented with the option of, oh, hey, by the way, before we go back, we should probably get the story straight. And it's like charisma check. And then you do it and it fails and he turns on you. And now the only solution is violence now. Right. And that's incredibly relatable as a Fallout player.
Totally.
So yeah, he's sweating in the T60 and Radroaches circle him, which I thought is really cool. I always use this illustration, but again, the way the Radroaches are used in this is reminiscent of Andor and the way that they use TIE fighters, where this is a common core element of the IP that suddenly has a little bit more danger, a little bit more weight and gravitas when it's used in a more street level kind of way. So when the Radroaches circle him, you feel the sense of danger. And I thought also that, you know, the way that they use this metro station from an art direction standpoint, it creates a really unique sense of dark and light. It's like he's in the darkness and then there's this light shooting out to the railroad tracks.
Right.
And it's also this sense of, you know, there's the wasteland where you're exposed, and then, you know, you could be more contained, a little bit more claustrophobic, a little bit more fearful underneath the metro station. And if you've played Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, you spend a lot of time in the metro, and there's always Radroaches in the metro, there's always ghouls, all these other animals that, you know, raiders, fiends that you run into. So I thought that was a cool way to incorporate the metro. But Maximus is essentially now begging the Radroaches to stay away, and, you know, they're picking through the vulnerable parts of the suit. I mean, he literally says not in there, which is so scary. It's like, just think about being in a suit and having like these huge like insects with massive tentacles and I guess maybe teeth, or like I don't know what they're gonna use to penetrate the armor, but like not being able to move. Again, very Indiana Jones to me, like with the way that Indiana Jones hates snakes and all of that. You know, this very gross kind of creature that is all over you.
It had that horror aspect that I was telling you about at the end of the last episode. I'm like, if they can do more things to add a little bit more of that horror, you got me. And this episode does that, so that's really cool. And this opening scene, it's already kind of like, here's the horror aspect, claustrophobia and giant bugs biting parts of you and you can't swat them away. Like
Right. And then it also adds, like I said, a value to the creatures that are typically like low level when you're playing Fallout. Although, as you mentioned before, you know, a first-time Fallout player will be surprised at how dangerous Radroaches could truly be when you're running out of ammo, running out of stim packs. And so if you're vulnerable and caught off guard, they can gang up on you. And that's essentially what's happening to him. And so I wanted to bring up that Tim Cain, again, in the same podcast on Play, Watch, Listen, he had a question for the show developers after he watched the premiere, which was essentially, hey, where are all the creatures? Like, you know, when you play the games, you see rats, you see radroaches, you see death claws. You know, obviously there's the bears and there's all these different kind of creatures. And they essentially said it was just budget. They didn't have a huge CGI creature budget, that in fact they chose to opt for live dogs instead of CGI dogs to save on budget as well. So they put the budget into CGI creatures like the Radroaches to be very specific plot-wise. And that was a point that Alana Pierce made, which I thought was so true after rewatching it, which she said that the Radroaches are always strategically placed in the show to serve a very specific purpose. So, you know, in this case, they were creating that horror element of being trapped in the power suit.
Love that.
So a hardened Lucy quickly returns the favor to the knight by saving him with the gun she stole back at the grocery store. And so recognizing the armor suit and Maximus, Lucy asks, that was you right back in Philly. So connecting that this is the same knight that she's kind of already formed. It's like she's imprinted, almost like a puppy does. Like she's imprinted onto Maximus. She's going to believe that he's a good person no matter what, because she needs him to be. Like she feels so betrayed. He's the only one who's shown real heroism. Right. Like she likes Maximus, and it's kind of like, this is the path. And so he says, yes, that was me. Someone stole my fusion core, which if you've played Fallout 4, I don't remember about Fallout 3, but in Fallout 4, fusion cores are valuable. You never want to have a drained fusion core or be short, because they are expensive and sometimes hard to find. So what did you think of Lucy's moment of kind of like shooting off the Radroaches? Because I really liked that scene.
I can't remember. Does her character sheet say that she has high perception? Because she was hitting all those Radroaches like one shot kill. Like it was nothing, no one's business. Did not even harm Maximus at all. You know, like that was so impressive. And it's just a testament how everything that she's built over her life, she's now using. But now she has she's finally gave in to the survival instinct of the wasteland and the best way she can, in her naive way, right? To the point of where she's like about to pass out, right? So I thought it was really cool how she got in there, and then he's kind of fangirling for her, like he's seeing her save him.
How so? Tell me.
Okay, so he's in the suit going like, yeah, not there, don't bite that, with the incisors, trying to get at the weakest part of the suit, which is like the chest and stuff and the neck. And then all of a sudden Lucy comes out with her Glock, her pistol, shoots the first Radroach straight off the face, and through the goop, the gooey slime blood of the Radroach, he sees Lucy shooting the rest of them off, defending the power suit armor, and she's just locked in. She just knows it's the suit. She doesn't even know if anyone's in it. It could be her new suit, but you see this. It was such good acting. Her face is like, I'm Keanu Reeves killing Radroaches right now, and you just see Maximus kind of have his like that face he makes when he gets really excited, like I just lucked out, like God's on my side. It was a good scene.
Totally.
So.
Yeah, so Lucy's perception is 7, and she has high luck at 7 as well. So, and high intelligence. So yeah, I think she was gonna make those shots for sure. And I agree with you. Like I think it's a really good scene for Lucy. You know, it really shows her in that Keanu style level of confidence. Feeling less incentive to trust anyone on the surface, Lucy warns Maximus that she's been betrayed so often and so completely by Wastelanders that her vault dwellers' optimism is quickly dying on the surface. So she says, quote, "Believe me, I really want to trust you." But then Lucy's realizing that the target requires some combination of persistence and focus because the Wasteland leads to many side quests, right? We heard the ghoul literally say that, I think, like something about a side quest. And then she explains that she's looking for the head, and so despite her desire to stick to the golden path, which, you know, in game design is the main quest, and so Lucy throws up from the radiated water she drank. So clearly her desire to just go after this head is already off the rails. So Maximus recognizes her sickness. He says, "Radiation sickness. I have Radway in my armor. You can," I believe he says armor. Right? It was hard to hear. "You could have it if you let me out." So he's already negotiating with her. He makes a plea and highlights her need to trust him in the Wasteland. He says, "If you don't get this medicine, you're going to pass out. Trust me, please, please." So Lucy unknowingly or knowingly gives Maximus an opportunity to reveal his true self because then he makes a calculated decision to keep up the false identity. She asks him, "What's your name?" Which I thought is interesting that it like comes right there after he's already had that confrontation with who is he. So as an audience, we're wondering, is he going to tell her the truth or is he going to keep up the lie? Because what does it matter to her? But he says, "I'm Knight Titus" again. And then she says, "I'm Lucy." So Lucy recognizes the power suit armor from her vault education, which I thought was interesting. She knows it's a T-60, and she says the army started using these after the Battle of Anchorage. So you could see the Battle of Anchorage in Fallout 3's DLC. So that's a really cool battle that I think would be interesting to see more Fallout games take you to, or see what's happening in Alaska and all that stuff. But Lucy collapses. So let's see. We've talked about a lot of the questions I wanted to discuss for that scene. So let's move into the next scene. So Vault 32. So in Vault 32, Norm and Chet go through their own discovery of betrayal. So remember how I was saying like that betrayal theme? Now we're seeing the Vault Dwellers discover the betrayal. So unlike the Wastelanders, the Vault Dwellers' society collapse is a much slower discovery. Norm and Chet venture outside their own Vault 33. The interconnected Vault 32's crops are clearly dead, implying famine or destruction of food resources. Norm asks the important question, which is the key to Vault 32 and 33 was Norm's deceased mother, Pip-Boy, and he asks, "How did the raiders get a hold of my mom's Pip-Boy?" Chet fears repercussions of his excursion with Norm and says, "Can't we just go home?" And an important discovery is made by Norm. "Why did the raiders want to get into Vault 31? He asks. "It looks like they were trying to get into 31. Why?" And so the wiki, I was just checking as I was doing my summary to make sure I wouldn't miss anything. And one thing I saw that they said was he was checking the 32 to 31 intervault door. So Matt, when you first saw this season, did you make the connection that these are kind of a 3-pack vault? Like, I was getting confused because I didn't make that connection. I was like, how many vaults are connected? Are all of them connected? Like, could you technically go vault to vault to vault? Which I don't believe you can. I think what I've discovered is that those 3 are connected.
Mm-hmm. I discovered that too. The first time I watched it, I was left with the question, how many vaults are connected? And if they are all connected, are they aware of the connection, right? I was also kind of confused, like, if they're all connected, are they shaped in like a triangle, you know? Like they can go to both of them from, like, maybe the west side of the vault goes to 31, and then the east side goes to 33, right? And then, you know, vice versa, depending on which vault you're in. I don't know, or are they in a row? Like you can only get to 31 from 32, right? I don't know if they're all connected that way. I couldn't remember. I'm gonna have to see on the second watch if if Norm goes from 33 straight to 31. I can't remember if he had to go through 32 to get to 31. Do you remember?
Yeah, it's confusing. So the path to 32 is in the farmland of 33.
Right.
And then here on the wiki, actually, they did add another thing that I threw into our notes, which is the wiki notes that the two discover the corpses of the Vault 32 dwellers, and the words, quote, "We know what's in there," written in blood. Norm and Chet deduce that the dwellers must have been trying to open the door. Horrified by what they have seen, the two return to Vault 33. So clearly there's an entrance there. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you see the doors, but it's hard to create that map in your head. So Chet can't stomach any more conspiracy or vault searching. He says, quote, "All I know is we're leaving." As the two exit Vault 32's dark and decrepit tomb, they enter a much healthier environment in Vault 33, immediately revealing their vault's healthy crops. Dirty and clearly up to something, Betty catches the two boys coming from the direction of the farmland just before Vault 32's entrance. So Betty says, quote, "Norman Chester, where have you two been?" And then they say that we've been planting those potatoes. So yeah, what did you think of that? We know what's in their message when you saw that. You know, it was like written in blood in Vault 32 and about Vault 33.
Well, it immediately made me think like there's something in there. Like this is the first time I watched it. I thought like there has to be something in there that's allowing them to or not that they're not leveraging to help them survive. Like maybe they went into a famine state and they figured out that, you know, there's something in 31, like maybe it's food, and it's like, I know you're holding out on all this food for us kind of thing. I thought it was just something of value that's going to help their society, or even provide information about like maybe the outside world is habitable, but maybe 32 you couldn't get out from 32. I don't know what my brain was thinking with that. I was just really kind of confused. But I mean, of course now we know what's in there, right? It's management.
And I was curious. Yeah. I was curious, like, what would you want to see in season 2? Would you want to see a Vault 32 flashback? And like, what questions would you have?
Ooh, gosh. I think it would be cool to see a Vault 32 flashback. Even if it was Moldaver just opening up the vault, you know, and seeing it all for the first time and seeing the Raiders' reaction to what was in there. That might be very cool. But it would be cool to see flashbacks of like them trying to get through 31, even if it's just a couple scenes of like slow motion horror where everyone's like stabbing each other in an interesting way. Like I think of the movie The Other Guys with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. They have some funny slow motion scenes like in the bar and stuff. And I'm like imagining that, but like a flashback to Vault 32's dark moment, and everyone's killing each other and things are flying in the air. Yeah, I would like to see something like that, and I think it could add value to like more of management, you know, and how sinister were they, and who was in cahoots with Vault 32, and how in cahoots were they, right? So that might be interesting to see some flashbacks with Hank. What if Hank was part of that, you know? That would have been interesting to see.
Yeah, so then we flip back to Lucy, who wakes up after passing out from radiation sickness to find Maximus followed through and administered the Radaway. So that was a huge trust fall that she probably didn't intend to make, which is essentially she passed out and she had no choice to trust Maximus. So Maximus is shocked that people live underground in the vaults as they're talking. He hides his power armor in the train station. Lucy discovers vault dwellers she describes vault dwellers as regular folks like me, and with his mission incomplete, Maximus explains that his squire took some something vital from the Brotherhood. Lucy asks Maximus if this Brotherhood of yours, you guys have more of those T-60s and guns, real I'm not messing around type guns. Lucy adds, I have a tracker that will lead right to that head. And Lucy perceives that the Brotherhood's target is in fact the same item she's pursuing herself. She asks, quote, seeing as everyone on Earth seems to be after that thing, I'm guessing you're after it too. And Lucy offers to help Maximus get the head and take it to the Brotherhood in exchange that Maximus will lend her the services of 5 or 6 Brotherhood knights to save her father. She explains her rationale. Look, you could have been lying about the medicine and you weren't. You could have killed me when I collapsed back there and you didn't. Lucy tells Maximus, I'm from a place where the worst someone can treat you is forget to say thank you. And Maximus responds, that sounds like a nice way to live. So they play this like Revolutionary War theme song, kind of regal and, as if Maximus and Lucy are the light shining into the dark that we'll hear about later. But my discussion question for you, Matt, is do you think the series incorporates the Pip-Boy, which is being used as the tracker, and the other Fallout technology like the
terminals,
the fusion core, and terminals in interesting ways? Like, have you been happy to see the way they use those items?
Yes, I'm very happy, especially in the second watch where I noticed they use them subtly to, offer a clue or transition into the next scene. I just think back to when she was on her Pip-Boy putting the tracker into the head. That was a great, unique, way to use the Pip-Boy as well. So I love seeing this technology. That's what kind of makes Fallout the Fallout universe, is the technology as well, not just like the abominations and the nukes, the wasteland. It's also the technology, because they went further with like nuclear technology, I guess, in their timeline, to create some more sci-fi-esque technology, like Jetsons almost, in a way, I think of. I really enjoy in this episode, we haven't got to that scene yet, but we were mentioning the tech. I noticed for the first time a terminal not being green in this one, where a terminal was another color. And that's a feature that you can do in Fallout, where you can, instead of having that bright green interface, you could adjust the colors of your Pip-Boy and things like that. So I thought that was interesting to notice another color in this episode. I'm not sure if they did it before, but this is the first time I noticed on a terminal it was light blue instead of green.
I know that the blue color has a lot of significance in the Fallout series. Tim Cain has said that, when they were designing the color palette of the first game, they had limited color options with the way that, the tech was at the time. And so he had told the art director, we got to use blue. Like, we still have some options for blue. And the art director said, well, I'm going to use only blue for the blue suit of the Vault Dwellers. So when you see, screenshots of Fallout 1, and I want to say Fallout 2, the only blue you see is really coming from the Vault Dwellers. And I think that the use of color, when it's really specific, is it makes the world feel more special and more unique. And I've heard that for the fabric for the Vault Dweller suits, that they use like a really rare and unique Italian style garment. So I think that they did a good job with color, and I want to rewatch the scene that you're mentioning.
I'll mention
to see
the
what's
scene
the
when we get
relevance of
there.
the blue.
Yeah, I'll mention it when we get there.
Okay, so then back at Vault 33, you hear Betty's voice. It's kind of like she's already the overseer at this point. But she says, I have faith you will make the right choice. Davy waits in line. And I think I saw this name, Davy, from the wiki. But he's the man that's in line talking to, I want to say, Reg. So Davy says, I'm sorry, Reg. I just feel that in times of crisis, we need someone with experience. It's showing how civil this world kind of is, at the surface level. And then Davy continues, with the water crisis and the prisoners, just all the uncertainty. Again, kind of a tie into Fallout 1, where you're faced with the water crisis right at the beginning. But he adds, and quote, and Betty's already been overseer once. I'm going to vote for Betty, which is interesting because I don't know if we know about Betty's first time as overseer.
Yeah, I don't know.
But Norm discovers this list.
Yeah. I think that it's really funny too that you're seeing Davy actually care Reg's feelings versus the contrast on the Wasteland. Like, no one cares about each other's feelings, you know? Like, it's so funny to see someone care so much about Reg and how Reg is gonna view him if he doesn't vote for him. Like, it's such a big deal. Really not. It's a funny contrast of worlds, and I think that the show does really well at balancing that. They do really well at keeping it cool and fun, but also funny with that horror. So this is one of those ways that they're adding a little bit of that humor and kind of laughing at themselves a bit too, right? They know what it is. I appreciate that when the director, we know what material we're doing, we know when it's appropriate to be funny, and this is one of those times. In regards to Betty being overseer, yeah, this is when stuff gets a little bit more spicy in the vault. And Betty gets a little bit more spicy too. The actor, she has some looks in this episode. Yeah, go on. You were finishing talking about her as well.
Well, yeah, just the point that, and the way that the wiki summarized it kind of messed with my summary. So the scenes kind of overlap more than they normally do in a typical episode. There's shorter bites. So some of this is interspliced as we go from scene to scene. But we do see Norm looking at the terminal and seeing that a lot of the overseers were from 31 and came to 33, which is a huge revelation. And again, watch the whole series because this is a huge tie-in towards the end. And this is the big discovery that, like, oh, why do all the overseers come from Vault 31? So we'll come back to that because that is more of a thing later, and it connects to Betty. So back with Lucy and Maximus. So they're pursuing the target. Lucy asks Maximus to tell her what happened in the last 200 years. Just the last 200 years, because she has her history lessons. So she says, the Great War I know about the bomb falling. She says, I want to specifically learn what happened after the bombs fell. And Maximus explains that the bombs fell when he was a kid, which I think should confuse her, right? Because she doesn't know about the bomb that came that soon. So
I think she said, like, haha, you're like joking or something. She says, like, haha, like, you're so funny, like. And then she
oh, interesting.
Moved on.
Okay.
And he didn't catch that. Like, he's like, okay, she didn't get it or something.
Right. So she explains her lack of understanding. I come from a place where the world is what you make of it. Again, kind of like all these, I want to say, colloquialisms of like, oh, you just got to work hard and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Be kind to your neighbors. Like this really like, oh, if you just do what the sayings and the catchphrases tell you, everything will be okay. Right. But then she goes on to say, we're naive down there. So I think she's realized like they don't know what they think they know. And she even explains like, I thought that the big light in our farm was the sun. Like, so that's how naive she truly was. So then we're back to Vault 38 where Betty wins. She gets a 98% majority, which maybe is suspect, maybe not. Maybe they've been so conditioned to vote for Vault 31 overseers that, maybe that's a real figure. But Norm analyzes the inner vault trade records and discovers that all of Vault 33's former overseers, including Betty and Hank, had been from Vault 31 as part of the trades. After the reveal of the elections result, Betty winning in a landslide, Norm, and this is the wiki summary right here, Norm meets up with Chet and discusses his suspicion, which Chet dismisses by saying that Vault 31 had a better education system, more resources, and a tradition of voting for overseers from Vault 31 exists in Vault 33. So, what are your thoughts as this conspiracy is unwinding?
When things look glum, Spencer, what do? We vote 31.
Vote 31, right. Yet I like how they tie that in. Like, it's cool to see the rationalization of the Vault Dwellers. Like, oh, well, that's the famous phrase,
It's super
and that
interesting.
Clearly pisses off Norm.
Yeah, it's super interesting, speaking about Norm, that I'm reading the Betty later wins the election with a 98% majority. It makes me think, like, is that 2% Norm? Like, he is the only one who didn't vote for her. And I wonder if Betty's going to check the votes and then, like, be like, my suspicions are right. I'm suspicious of Norm. And it makes, hindsight, I didn't realize that vote was 98. That's interesting. But in regards to 30, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's keep going.
Right, because I think there is more. Yeah. Okay. So back to Maximus and Lucy. So they cross a bridge. Oh, and this is cool. This is another trust theme. They're crossing the bridge. There's a duo of a man and a woman, and the Wastelanders claim they have no weapon. And it's funny because like Maximus yells like, "Neither do we!" Like really like threatening, like very clearly lie. Like
I love
just
how
like
he's
puffing
having
out his chest like, "Neither do we."
Yeah, I love that. I
Right.
love how he's like trying to talk to Lucy and the Wastelanders at the same time. It's so funny because he's like, you understand the pressure of like, I want to keep this conversation going, but you're talking to me right now, and I'm trying to tell you, give me the gun, you know. So funny.
Right. So there's a mirroring. Yeah, there's a mirroring between the two couples walking past the bridge. Lucy insists that neither couple keeps their, or she wants them to keep their hands up so that way they don't grab their weapons. She says hands up on the count of 3, and then they play this like pleasant and tranquil music. I try to Shazam it because it's a popular song, which with the trumpet, and you'll hear it a lot on social media and stuff. But they're passing, and the woman I think looks a little bit like Lucy if she was a decayed Wastelander. And then the guy has a cowboy hat, and I think he kind of looks like the raider that Lucy was supposed to marry. So it's almost like what would have happened if Lucy was abandoned as a Wastelander, is how I interpreted it. And then the Wastelanders woman, she eyes Lucy's pit boy, and that's when things kind of turn sour. She shows these yellow decaying teeth. The man has scarring on his face, and they all draw weapons, and Maximus pulls the gun from Lucy's holster, which I think is a really cool action sequence.
Yes.
And he takes really good aim. I think he shoots one person in the head and then one in the heart, and then Lucy is exasperated by the conflict. Oh, the throat. Okay, yeah. So then she says, like, why? And Maximus explains that the couple of Wastelanders were fiends. And he says, I should have known. And then Lucy spots that Maximus's arm is bleeding. He says, it's just a scratch, happens all the time. And then Lucy asks Maximus, what's a fiend? And he tells her that they're people who eat people. And Lucy, exhausted by all the ugliness of the surface, says, I hate it up here. And so... yeah, like, what did you think of the introduction of fiends? Because I think fiends are in Fallout 3, and there's, I can't remember if they're in Fallout 4. They probably are in Fallout 4. But what did you think of the introduction of cannibals?
I can't remember what games they're actually a part of, but it wasn't weird to see them. I knew exactly what they were talking about. I just thought it was interesting too how this is the second time Lucy's confronted cannibalism. First with the ghoul, and then a fiend, and so now like it totally makes sense. While she's like, not even ghouls just eat people, but like people eat people up here too, and they're fiends. Like that's crazy. I thought this was a really good and funny scene, just to kind of show the tension between peoples on the wasteland, and it also just builds the banter and relationship between Maximus and Lucy very well, and builds trust. They're forced to rely on each other and get to know each other, how each other handles heated situation. So it was really cool for us to see that, because it's helping us understand what these people are capable of together in the future. And I kind of like them together, right? I like what's happening here. It was a fun scene.
Yeah. And then back at Fault 33, so this is kind of getting into more of what we were discussing. So Davey explains that during the Weeble famine, he lost to none other than Hank McLean. And then the phrase comes up, when things look glum, vote for somebody from Vault 31. And then Chet and Norm hang with the baby. They seem bored with family life, and more importantly, nervous at their discoveries of Vault 32. And Norm, I think, says, you don't think it's weird that we always elect an overseer from 31? Chet explains that 31 has more resources and a better education system. Norm sarcastically says, things look glum, vote 31. Chet recognizes the slogan and tries to attribute the Vault 31's overseer success to the powerful slogan. Unconvinced, Norm challenges Chet, you think 200 years of coincidence boils down to a slogan. And then Chet reminds Norm that Steph, his new boo, is from Vault 31. And Norm asks, Steph, how is Vault 31 different from here? And rather than answering, Steph asks Norm, what did your dad tell you? And then Norm explains that his dad never told him much. Steph says, gee, I don't know, maybe the mashed potatoes were a little better. And then Norm says, that's what my dad used to say. Steph responds, must be true then. The next scene shows Norm delivering trays of food to the raiders with a close-up of mashed potatoes. And then we hear over the intercom, hello Vault 33, in my first edict as overseer I will be hosting a meeting about the future of Vault 32. So at this point it's very eerie, spooky. Clearly Steph is kind of in on whatever the conspiracy of Vault 31 is, which caught me off guard the first time I watched it. I totally was like, oh yeah, that's right, she's from Vault 31, that's crazy. And it really adds to the mystery and intrigue to have someone alive from Vault 31, and why is it such a mystery?
Right. And it makes me, like I was saying with the flashback to 32, like it makes me think, who's in cahoots with who? Is everyone in 31 on the same page still? What are the roles that everyone has? Because she didn't try to become overseer. Why did Betty want to be overseer? Did they meet up and discuss the plan? Or do they know? They must, because they're both from 31, but I want to know the level of cahoots. So that this was crazy the first time I watched it, and also crazy the second time I watched it, because I don't know, I just felt like her acting hit me a little bit more. Her kind of creepy, like it was like so normal of a smile and pleasant, but also very weird and cultish, right?
Right. I think it was a really good scene. So then Lucy and Maximus discover Shady Sands, more over the remains of Shady Sands.
Right.
And so a city sign states that this is the first capital of the new California Republic, established in 2142. I think that date's right. I would try to grab it from watching it. But Lucy's completely caught off guard by the existence of Shady Sands, a post-war city. So she says, this isn't real, right? And then Maximus is shocked at Lucy's surprise. You've never heard of the new California Republic? So the size of the population of Shady Sands perplexes Lucy. She says 34,000 people lived here after the war. And then the idea of reclaiming the surface and spreading the message of the vault to the wasteland leads Lucy to ask, what about Reclamation? Lucy explains that the entire purpose of my vault was to come up to the surface one day. And she expands, Reclamation, it's what keeps us all going. She sat and realized that it's already happened without us. Maximus tries to comfort her with a depressing observation. Well, if it makes you feel any better, it didn't work out. An observation I made during the scene is that Lucy is now back in her full jumpsuit. So when she passed out, she was in the white with the leather. I thought it was interesting that if you pay attention to what she's wearing, it's like, oh wait, she's back in the vault suit, like full on. No more leather, no more white. So I'd be curious why they decided to put her back in the blue, maybe to just drive home the vault dwellerness of, discovering the betrayals.
I didn't even notice that.
There are a lot
catch that. That's really cool.
It was interesting. Yeah. So then I wanted to note that there's a bunch of cars. So according to Tim Cain, Fallout 1 director, the art director of Fallout 1 was bummed because some of the cars are spot on from Fallout 1 design-wise, and then some of the cars are not. And just like, the stuff that original Fallout people noticed, not encouraging people to get angry, but just saying, well, if your job is to model all the cars, you notice the cars. If your job was picking the blue of the vault dwelling suit, you notice that. Like, all of the different hands that have touched the series pay different attention to the level of detail than their peers. But yeah, so then Lucy asks Maximus what happened, and then the TV series takes on a motto of its own and is presented by Maximus in this scene. So to me, the motto of this TV series version of Fallout is that it's the same thing that always has happened. Everyone wants to save the world, but they they disagree on how. And so that's kind of like Fallout 1 and a lot of the other Fallouts is like war never changes. This is kind of the TV series' version of that. And then Lucy asks, I wonder if anyone survived. This is when Maximus says, I did. And then we should keep moving. So realizing that Maximus's arm requires proper medical attention, his injury pushes them into seeking medical supplies. So this is when I was saying, like, this is where they get off the golden path and they're going into a side quest, because they descend into the Hawthorne Medical Laboratories, which is, as they get into this area, it gets moodier and foggier, more of that atmosphere that we love. And then Maximus says, wait, there could be anything in there. And Lucy says, yeah, like a first aid kit. And the camera zooms out to reveal a Vault-Tec logo on the pavement. And so, like, fearful of the mysteries that await them, Maximus calls out Lucy kind of in desperation, as she's already kind of gone. And then there's more signs that are saying research and development, clues as to what they're going to discover. And then
so
again, we see we're at...
This is the scene. This is the scene where when she walks in, and they're panning and she's walking in, the first computer is blue, and then the rest are green.
Oh, interesting.
Which is really weird.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're trying to tell you that there's a Vault-Tec there.
Because the blue, right? That makes sense.
Right. So then they enter the room that says medical supplies. He becomes trapped, and then he gets engulfed in this like chemical, and I think he descends into a trap door. So what did you think of this kind of hidden vault? Stumbling upon a hidden vault.
I thought this was really cool. It adds to that side quest vibe that we were talking about in the beginning of the episode, and this is just another one, right? And it's getting crazier in a way and more interesting, as it should, as the side quest should. I really just want to stress again, I like this scene of him being cautious, not wanting to go in. He's more familiar with the wasteland. But then she's naive and more brave and goes right in. like I just love that contrast of how they both handle the wasteland, because we've been there as gamers, both sides. Oh, I need to prep before going into that dungeon. Or, you know what? I don't care what's in there. I want to kill something. I need to get some more loot, whatever it is. I'm charging right in. Even if there's a bomb or a trap mine. But I really like both of their characters and how they're handling the situation. Again, I think it makes an interesting dynamic that we are going to continue seeing in the next couple episodes. This is where I kind of started feeling like, though, I wish we got here a bit sooner. I really am enjoying seeing them both on screen together. And maybe that's because I spent so much time with them individually and got to know their characters a bit more. That probably does help. But I'm having such a good time seeing them together doing these sorts of missions. I like the Supermart with Lucy in there. Now I feel like we're doing some more Fallout-y missions and storylines. So it made me feel like the first time watching it, I love this now. I wish we had some more of this instead of so much exposition in the first 3 episodes. But watching it a second time through, like we were saying the last couple of weeks, I'm understanding all the exposition. I'm understanding what they were doing. But I'm still sympathetic with my first time watching it through, and there is some merit, I think, to wanting to push more of these Fallout moments sooner. Because I will also, when we get to it in the next couple episodes, I kind of feel like some of the story is a little bit rushed and wrapped up really fast in the last episode, where I kind of feel like maybe if they would have, paced things a little bit differently, I would be able to absorb more. So we'll see. There's also merit and love for watching things twice, not seeing everything. I think of Lord of the Rings. I think of Harry Potter. We love rewatching these movies over and over again because we don't notice everything. So this just has been a very interesting series that we've done to really dissect this show. It's been so long since I've dissected anything like this, so it's really fun. Thanks for the idea, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so then it like transitions really interestingly into Vault 33, where now they're basically, Betty explains that it's important to me for all of us, or for us all, to see this place together as a community, as a family, so that we can heal together. So clearly, Betty is not who we thought she was when we first met Betty. Like, Betty is more than capable to be an overseer. She's got an agenda that she was hiding. Like, she was waiting in the wings for this. And Chet says, what is happening here? So Betty tells the Vault 33 dwellers that she spoke with the overseer of Vault 31, which is, again, a huge, like, what? There's a overseer over there.
Right.
And then the implication is that Betty and the overseer of 31 are embarking together on a resettling campaign. Some Vault 33 dwellers will stay home to rebuild 33 in the wake of the Raider insurrection, and the others will be going to Vault 31 to resettle this dilapidated vault. So Chet and Norm are completely surprised by the revitalization of 32, as the song that plays over has lyrics that says, what a difference a day makes, because essentially Betty and someone has totally cleaned up Vault 32. And so we see Chet and Steph kind of viewing, which I think is going to become maybe their new home. I'm not 100% sure on that. And then there's all these really specific Fallout 4 rugs and decor that remind me of Fallout 4 when you're playing the game and you're decorating your settlements. There's all this like mid-century abstract art. And then Betty insists that the vault dwellers must remember how good they have it in their vaults 31, 32, and 33. So she sees them as like a trifecta. And then she describes the interconnected vaults as 3 democracies and 3 vaults, the goal being to connect to aid one another in times of need. And then Betty describes the vault dwellers as the lucky ones. We're the lights burning in the dark. So reminding the vault dwellers of their purpose, Betty claims it is to bring the light to the surface. So asking Norm, who clearly seems skeptical, she says, find anything interesting? And Norm congratulates Betty, saying, great job cleaning up. Betty blames the destruction on the Raiders, saying that the Raiders destroyed so much, but not our spirits. And then Norm asks, Betty, when my mother died, what happened to her Pip-Boy? And then Betty answers, it was buried with her. And Norm asks, how are you so sure? And she says, well, it's because I buried her myself. And I think she says, with your father. So clearly, again, like, this is the episode where we discover, oh, we can't trust Betty.
Right.
Betty's in on whatever conspiracy Norm is trying to untangle. And then after that, I believe it ends with Lucy and Maximus waking up in Vault, I want to say 4. So yeah, we kind of touched on, you know, our thoughts on Betty and all of that and the episode.
Well, I do want to say now, since you were talking and we were talking about Steph earlier and like what role does she have? I had noticed that when they were going into Vault 32 to see it all redone, she was in a wheelchair with the baby, right? But prior to that, when we saw her, she was just getting out of the shower, walking around all fine, like I got energy, you know? It makes me wonder, do you think maybe she was rinsing off all the blood and all the pain and all the work that she was doing with Betty, and she's involved with that, and she's trying to throw you off when, you know, going into 32, like it couldn't have been me to help. I'm in a wheelchair, you know?
Right. Yeah, no, yeah, because like who helped Betty is the big question, and it seems like it would be Steph.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a great episode and an even better episode on the second watch. Like we both keep saying, we just picked up on so much. So yeah, it's already been an hour, so we will go ahead and leave it there. But thank you guys for watching us break down this episode, and hopefully you guys are picking up on Easter eggs and other little tidbits that you didn't notice at first. And yeah, let us know if there's anything we missed from watching it that has had you thinking about the episode differently. And go ahead and subscribe over to JumbyJumbwa's channel, JumbyJumbwa, and subscribe over to the Yetti Dan. And we will see you guys next time. We'll be breaking down episode 6, The Trap. And yeah, so we will leave it there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Yeah.